It's the time of year.
And it was not a good sports weekend as far as Saturday goes. It was rough.
Yeah,
There's
DJ
not much
Moore
on.
only has 16 yards and need him to get 60. And Jacoby Myers has a big bunch of nothing. I also need 60 from him, so it's not looking great. But we're only one half in, so we'll record a podcast, watch the second half of football, and hopefully some good stuff.
I don't even know
will
who's
happen.
playing.
Yeah, it's Chicago and Vikings tonight. And then,
Not really. Is there 2 games tonight?
yeah, there's 2 games now. Vegas is also playing, I think, the Falcons.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So did you see that Michael Vick is being looked at as San Diego State's future coach? Yeah. I don't know how I feel about all former players becoming coaches.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how well that is going to work out for someone like him or any of them. I know Dion has worked out pretty well, but
Dion's done well. There was somebody, and he's high school though, but they're like in the state championship game in Florida, and I forget who it is. It's a former player, got hurt. I'll Google that while you talk about something else. But he seems to be doing well, but like giving back to the community in high school.
well, like
coaching
Witten
that
does
way.
it.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of those guys do it, but I can't. I don't know how it doesn't always translate. And I mean, I know in the NBA it doesn't translate always either. So it just kind of depends on the human. I don't really think it's who it is, but I just think that I don't know. Coaching is hard, especially.
It's not the same skill set. It's Teddy Bridgewater.
That's who. Yeah, okay.
It's not the same skill set as a player, right? I mean, I know nothing really about either one, but you can imagine that just because you can play well doesn't mean you can coach well.
And just because you're...
What about Belichick going to UNC?
Man, first off, I freaking hate the Tar Heels. I hate them. So anything they do is just... God, I hate them. For those that don't know, I'm a huge Duke fan. So I just hate anything they do. By the way, for my 40th birthday, I got a Christian Laettner Dream Team jersey autographed. It's awesome.
It's a good gift.
Good gift. Very good gift.
It's a good gift. I'm just looking back at Belichick as, all right, let's see how this goes. But, like, I feel like I want to see success right off the bat. Like, they need to be a contender next year.
Well, they weren't bad. What were they, 8-4?
Right. They already had some groundwork laid, from what I hear. I don't really
Mac Brown?
follow Tar Heel. Yeah. He has a lot of good seasons from what I remember or understand. And then went, 6 and something this year? So
Yeah,
6.
not terrible.
No, just had an off year. Belichick was available, and they wanted him, and he took the job. So
When I think Mac Brown was done, he was retiring anyways.
yeah.
Have you seen Belichick's lady friend?
Yes.
She's very young.
Very young.
And he's like 78.
I don't know.
He's an older
Too.
gentleman. And she's in her 20s.
Yeah, that's one of the memes going around about his recruiting ability. His college recruiting ability. He's apparently pretty good at it. So
I got
on the cheerleader side of things, I mean, we'll see how he is on the football player side of things. But I don't know, man. He has a reputation as just college. I don't know anything about it.
I saw Gronk and Wes Welker and Brady talking about it, and they just didn't seem like they think he was very good at it. Mm-hmm. That was kind of the tone they were giving. They were obviously on NFL Today or whatever, but
yeah.
I just don't know how well it translates.
Those guys to come out for you, then like who is? But
I mean, I'm sure they'll go full bar support of him. You know,
but I think Brady is liking this. Everybody right now knows that it was him in New England.
Yeah,
because like it was always, is it Brady or is it Belichick or is it both? Well, then when he leaves and goes to Tampa Bay, wins another one, and Belichick falls off the map. You know it was Brady, right? So that's the narrative right now. So if he goes and has a successful college career, I don't know if it changes that about his coaching ability, but I will watch and laugh from a distance. I don't really care about Tar Heel football.
me neither.
It'll be interesting to
But
watch.
the Army-Navy game, is there any more pomp and circumstance that goes into a game than that one?
That is fun.
I didn't get to watch all of it. I watched the opening.
Not so great. My bets didn't go well on that game. I can tell you, Army quarterback, I'm not happy with you right now.
So are you a degenerate? I don't know this about you. I didn't know this about you.
Maybe, but it does keep me paying. So a lot of people pay attention to football because they do fantasy. They're like, they otherwise would not pay attention to other teams that aren't like they're one of the teams.
I agree.
Except for fantasy. Mine is sort of fantasy. It's just fantasy gambling. Because we determined on the last podcast it was in fact gambling, but it is legal somehow in our state, so it's got to be different somehow. Because sports betting is not allowed in this great state.
How does that work?
That's a whole other topic.
I was about to say, what app do you use? An app?
Mm-hmm. And it's not like allegedly you can use gambling apps like through a VPN if you're in a state that does not allow it. I'm not doing it. Like, this is completely legal.
Huh.
It's just there's something about it because of how you have to structure it that makes it not gambling. So I don't know.
I don't know either.
It feels like it, and it's fun. It's like little small amounts. I mean, I'm up since Thanksgiving a grand total of $200. Like,
So not a bad.
But it's not like there are people obviously betting that and more on every single bet they make, and I'm like $5-10, you know, because I've seen what happens with these guys. You know, and it's like I'm not putting my faith in you, sir.
Next thing you know, you're mad at the South Dakota State
Division
II football game you're watching.
Got beef with a 20-year-old. All of a sudden,
I mean, I can see definitely how I fall. I have a very addictive personality, so I have to avoid like gaming. I can't do it because if I were to sit, I would be never present mentally or physically anywhere I needed to be. I would just be gaming all the time.
Yeah, but I like it. It's fun. Keeps me engaged in the stuff. So I make little bets here and there. And
you might have to tell me when we're not recording what app you use.
I feel like. Do you think Caleb Williams looks like Dak Prescott when he's got a football helmet on? Look at that.
A little bit. I don't really like him. I don't really know why.
I feel like I could wake up from a long nap and be like, did Dak get traded to the Bears? I think he looks a lot like Dak when he's in his...
He moves a little better than Dak, but it's probably just because he's young.
He is young.
I really thought they were going to get Trey Lance in that game yesterday.
What kind of win margin do they have to pull Cooper Rush?
I don't know. I mean, Mike McCarthy has said that as long as they're potentially getting in the playoffs, he's going to continue to start.
My goodness. We have so many out now. Diggs is out again.
Yeah, he's done for the season. He may miss all of training camp. I saw that on the way here.
Yeah, that's... I'm not Team Tank because Team Tank is... It's dishonest, I feel like. And you're a professional. You should go out there and play and try to win. It's up to the owners to play that level of chess. But still, you kind of wish when you're not going to make it anyway.
You think McCarthy comes back?
I don't. I really don't. I just don't. I think they'll... I don't know, though.
Who are you going to replace him with? That's the problem.
I'm not like 90% sure he's not coming back. I'm more than 50, and that's it.
Like 51?
Yeah, I mean, I could be like 51,
I'm 50. I'm 50-50.
It'd be like 51, 55% that he's not coming back. If you tell me you have to pick right now, that's what I'm going to pick. But I think there's a good chance that Jerry brings him back, and just says, oh, we believe in Mike. I think there's a chance.
That was a pretty good impression.
Yeah.
I believe in Mike.
Oh, my gosh. Reminds me of the old radio station. Was it The Ticket that used to do fake Jerry?
Yes.
Gosh, they were so good. The Wade Phillips years. It's better than my... Mike McCarthy's better than the Wade Phillips years.
Yeah, at least he's doing. I really like him. I think he's a good. I think he's a good guy. I mean, you listen to him on the radio, and he seems personable.
I'll make this prediction. I feel like if Mike McCarthy comes back, I feel like they'll do it before the season's over.
Fair.
I feel like they'll just go ahead and make that call and say, "I've seen enough. We're going to bring him back," and do that. So.
But I was watching it yesterday, and looking for coaching mistakes, because you're looking for things when your team is not good, and you're right. I never really felt I know game management, but then you watch other teams and the game management is terrible for them too. Mm-hmm. And so armchair football coach. I
Yeah.
mean, who are you going to bring in that's better
Right.
and has more skins on the wall?
I'm not saying I agree with getting rid of Mike McCarthy because I don't see anybody else out there that's better, but I still think there's a more likely than not chance that Jerry makes a move and gets rid of him, blames somebody. Because I think the bigger question for Jerry Jones is not who else do you get, but who else can you blame on this season if you don't blame Mike McCarthy?
Can't you just blame injuries?
Yeah, they sucked before that.
Yeah, I guess. I also feel like, too, you got to get 4 or 5 weeks in before you even really know who your team or what your team is. And we never really had a chance before you had major injuries.
Yep. Yeah.
There's some bright spots in the season. I mean, Overshown looked like, well, heck, now he tore every ligament in his leg.
That's the curse of the Cowboy linebacker. Sean Lee, Van Der Esch, now Overshown.
At least it's not his head.
Yeah. At least that. But I don't know.
And like, how do you, when your starting quarterback goes down, how do you can't always blame the coach, and especially when Cooper Rush has played well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's been a couple plays that he's made, like the fumble that was on him yesterday, but then he takes ownership of it and then drives down the field and scores a touchdown in the second half. So
I know Carolina's
I know they're bad.
But you went in and you beat a bad team by a good margin, like you did what you're supposed to do on a bad team. Beating the Bengals was a good win. The comeback against the Ravens, even though you wound up losing, like that was impressive. Like there are some bright spots, like you say. But I just don't know.
I just don't think we're that far away from being halfway decent. I don't think you're that far away from a 10-12 win team.
Which is this time last year.
Yeah.
It was our year last year.
And then you get into the playoffs and
the 7 seed knocks you out.
Yeah.
In a blowout.
We're not going to talk about that.
No.
I'm in a great mood.
Yeah, let's get off of that. Let's talk about the Army-Navy game and Trump and his much better entourage. That's something I've just thought about is you think about the people around Trump in 2016. Like you got Rudy Giuliani, which I hate, man, because that guy I have so much respect for as somebody who was a freshman in college when 9/11 happened and what Rudy Giuliani did for this country as the mayor in New York. I have a lot of respect for that guy. But then looking at him in 2016, just mistake after mistake with hair dye running down his face, like trying to – it just is a bad look. And then you got the My Pillow guy was the guy, you know.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, got caught with like all these files and wanted an audience with the president because he had figured out how he actually won and like you take those two guys in 2016 versus
Mike Lindell was his name.
Yeah, who he has around him today, and I think the Trump entourage has increased.
Well,
tenfold.
and even the vice president selection, Mike Pence, great. I think he's a good human.
Yeah,
like I don't, but also he wasn't J.D. Vance, and he isn't J.D. Vance. And so I think that all three, and Elon being there also, I think that just shows a strength in just their presence being there.
Yeah.
And I think that is so important. And that's something that we've been missing for the last 4 years. And taking a pulse of what the country is looking for and looking at. And I think a lot of people in our demographic look for that. Like I'm looking for someone who's going to lead by example. And the biggest way you can lead by example is to lead the military. And that is an important game to the military. By showing up, you recognize it. And then you don't have to be there long. I don't even think they stay. I would imagine they don't stay for the whole game, but
yeah.
I mean, you have to be there and show your presence. And just being there matters. Showing up matters.
Yeah, but I think a lot of people vote for president and give a president credibility by who they have around them. And it's like, hey, it's Donald Trump, but who's going to be in his ear? Who's his counsel going to be? And so you look at who he had before, and it just was not impressive versus who you see now with J.D. Vance, with RFK, Elon, Vivek, Tulsi. Like, those are impressive people to me. And so it gives me a lot more faith in what he's going to be able to accomplish as a president because of the people he has around him. Because it's not a one-person job. you vote for 2 people on the ticket, but you're actually voting for an entire group of people. They're going to make decisions that affect our lives every day for the next few years, at least.
And I think too that we discount that sometimes, like especially with the last president, because I think Obama having Biden on his side in that time period, like we're going back, but Biden having him next to him, Obama having Biden next to him was important.
It was.
And it was I think it was a great pick.
An experience versus experience.
Correct. And then Cheney at the time being next to Bush, that's an important pick.
I think it was good for them, but it means a lot that that's not good anymore. Like, you don't have a Trump whose only political office he's had is 1 term as a president so far. I think you got J.D. Vance, who's in his first term as a senator. You have Elon Vivek, these people who've never served in political office before, so high political office. So I think that's a complete turning it on its head. Like in the past, it was like if you brought in the young guy, if you brought in Bill Clinton, of course he also had Al Gore kind of young, but he also brought in a lot of the old Democrat guard from the 70s and 80s for his cabinet. So you had that kind of coverage. When Trump's turned everything on his head and said, it's actually a beneficial thing if you don't have political experience to come in here and right this ship.
But that's more taking pulse of the country too, right? Like there's push for term limits. Well, how can you push for term limits if you have Mitch McConnell as your vice president?
Right.
You know what I mean? Or a Mitch McConnell-esque person up there talking about term limits. And I think that it's just taking the pulse and understanding the nation and where we're at and what needs to change and how to change it.
Yeah. And that's a perfect segue, because as the Army-Navy game was going on, I'm watching the game, doing other stuff, scrolling Twitter, and President Biden tweets out, this is black, just kind of meme text. It says, ban assault weapons. And his text with the tweet says, I did it in 94 and I'll do it again. I'm like, what? It's December 14th.
I thought, can I be honest with you?
You got a month to go and you're tweeting out, ban assault weapons. I did it in 94. What? Was that scheduled 4 months ago? And they just ran the tweet? Like, how dumb is that? And also, how completely out of touch can you be?
100%.
You've got Trump, Vance, Elon, Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House, all at the Army-Navy game, with Daniel Penny there with them, who's seen as an American hero to a lot of people that voted for Trump and a lot of people just in general. And then you got Biden over there tweeting, hey, let's ban assault weapons. What? You can't make this up.
But I wish we could. At times, how
it would be a great SNL skit.
100%.
They need to have a split screen of Trump over here, just massive applause and crowds getting great accolades, and Biden's over there sitting next to the fire with his Snuggie on, tweeting something. I doubt he ever tweets anything but himself. But it was just a complete we keep saying how out of touch the Democrat Party was, and the candidacy and the whole DNC machine for this last election. But it just keeps proving itself when you see stuff like that.
I keep waiting for the moment where it's going to change. There's got to be an awakening happen.
That's the question, though. Who is going to change it?
And it's not anybody that I know of at the moment.
No, they don't. We've talked about this.
Do they care?
Yeah, they're reeling.
No. I'm not talking about financially. I'm talking about, do you think I realize financially they care, but I'm talking about, do you think they fully understand the grassroots movement that has happened? Because I don't think they do.
I've heard they say they want to get their own Joe Rogan, and they're trying to tap some people to do that. But you can't accomplish what Joe Rogan has accomplished by throwing money at something.
No.
You have to actually get people that want to listen to it. And people aren't going to listen to their ideas. Now, Fetterman has said some great stuff. And Van Jones, whenever Obama was running, I thought was probably the most liberal left person there was. And he's a correspondent or anchor or whatever you call him on CNN now. And he's out there saying Trump is smarter than me and everybody else. Like, he's just flat out saying it. Like, he gets the American people better. I've heard countless Democrats this week say Trump is just flat out smarter and he gets it and we don't. So there are some people out there who realize it, but I think those are the people that are going to talk about whoever picks up the mantle. It seems like, if I can just draw like a generalization here, the only people I'm hearing say that they actually get it are people who aren't going to run and aren't going to lead and aren't going to be a candidate. They're people who are going to talk about whoever is. But there's nobody out there who can step up and be a candidate. I mean, I don't think John Fetterman's going to run for president. He had a hard enough time with his Senate seat in Pennsylvania. And he's just a weird dude. Just, we talked about him on one of the first or second podcasts. He's kind of an odd duck. So he's the only politician, I guess I could say, that him and Bernie Sanders. Bernie did say some stuff, but I doubt he runs again. That could lead and is actually saying, like, they got it. They connected with the American people and we did not, and that's why we lost. Most of the people saying that are pundits and talking heads, that's what we like. There's such a vacuum right now for anybody with any sense in the Democrat Party to step up and really seize their moment. If anybody who could step up and run could lead, like there's a vacuum of leadership. And I don't want them to find anybody good. I'm not saying that necessarily. I mean, you want a good spirited debate, but I also don't want them to. I'm really getting down to the weeds on this one. I'll say one more thing and I'll hush. But
no, I mean,
I don't want them to realize kind of what they started to realize towards the end of the campaign, calling all red, Kamala, and think they can run on one thing and do something else. I do think, as much as I love our countrymen, they could fall for that pretty easily. That I think they have realized when they come back in this next campaign, they cannot push the far left and the fringe agenda and get elected. So they'll run to the center, which is something they kind of normally do in a general, which they didn't do the last couple, but kind of run to the middle some, but then implement their same policies. I don't know.
But I think that's what they did with Biden, and it didn't work. And then you start to push
they
these.
Just got it too late with him.
But I'm saying, like, they push those middle ideas at the beginning of to the never Trumpers, right? And then you start to see some of these other ideas come along that are way too far to the fringes that you're starting to push. Mm-hmm. I don't want to hop down the actual things that they were pushing, but it's like, what and how can they come back from this? Clint, I don't know that they can.
I'll tell you this.
Here's what I'm worried about, and I'm worried that we have pushed the public. Mm-hmm. I know the vote was still relatively close. Like, there's still hundreds of millions of people that voted Democrat. But did they vote for a party or did they vote for a person? Because if you voted for the person, I think that's less than 50% of that. I think 50% of the people vote for party. Mm-hmm. And if you don't have a leader there, and now you're going into your second election in a row, I realize we're still 4 years away from that, but it's still pretty fresh on our brains. If you go into a second election where there just doesn't seem to be a clear leader, and you could even argue now that this is number 3 that they haven't had a real clear leader. Mm-hmm. What are you going to do? And I don't. A 2-party system is bad. A 1-party system is not good either.
Well, what they can do is, like we've talked about, if the change is not drastic enough for people to feel it, they can run against non-performance. I think that if the Democrats do well either in the midterms or in 2028, it'll be because Trump and his team did not deliver fast enough or deliver enough to make a difference. Because like you said, it is like he did get the popular vote. It was a 312 electoral vote landslide. But at the end of the day, it was still close. In a lot of those states, you could have flipped a couple percent, a 2.5%. One way or the other, 1%, 1.5% in a couple of those states, the other way, and there's a different outcome. So if Trump does not deliver, then I think that's something they can run against and have success with. So that's why DOGE is so important. I think is one of his main, policy. The economy, which DOGE is going to have a part of, and then immigration. How you have to see change there. But I just like his approach. He was asked today if he was going to have preemptive strikes on Iran. Did you see that interview question?
With who?
He was doing
an interview with Trump?
Doing a press conference. Trump, yeah. And they said, "Are you going to launch preemptive strikes on Iran?" And he said, "What a stupid question!" Like, as if I would tell you that either way.
Who was it? Was it a press conference?
Yes.
I didn't really watch the news today yet.
He stole the show. The Democrats are having their Christmas get together or whatever, and so Biden's up there. He looks so bad today. There have been days where I thought he looked a little better, but today it was really bad. He was super, super sundowning today, and then Kamala gets up there and is just like, we haven't lost, we're still in it, and no one's paying attention.
No one's paying attention.
No one's.
I didn't even see it on the news
or anything. So Trump does his own press conference and steals the news cycle and just kills it, But he still gets those little try to get you questions like that. And he says, seriously, person, yeah, let me announce on a press conference, hey, we're going to launch preemptive strikes against Iran. What a dumb question. But there have been times when he would have had a different answer to that. So I like his approach.
And I think too, the DOGE question, and there's been a lot of talk about that in the, remote work and the Democrats joining. You put on there the DOGE Congressional Caucus.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about the work week. So I know, are you a hybrid?
Yes,
you're hybrid. So I'm not.
Right.
5-day week, 8 to 5. Well, early, more hours than that, but my stance on that is, first off, I don't really have one because I can't. Right? I don't. That's not available to me. If I'm not at work, I can't work. And when you a school teacher, you have to be there.
Right.
There are positions within education that you can have where you don't necessarily have to be there. But if you're a teacher,
yeah,
it's hard. I mean, it can be done. Topic for another day, but it's hard to teach kids from a computer screen. It's really hard. It's very hard.
Tried it. Again, not just speaking hypothetically.
No, I know.
It's been tried,
And were you out of education at that point?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
My daughter stayed out. So with our school district, everybody, of course, went home in that spring of 2020. And then you had the option when the fall rolled around of 2020. You could either go back or stay. My oldest decided to stay home. And she was able to get her work done. She's a lot like me. She is a test taker, one that can just kind of get it, doesn't need a lot of instruction to get what she needs to get
doesn't
done.
Need a lot of encouragement.
She can get her school day done in a couple hours kind of thing, And she liked that stuff, just getting put on Google Classroom. She goes in, she does her work, she's done for the day. She also told me, she's like, I don't want to go back because they're just going to shut it down again.
Yeah.
And some other districts did. Ours did not. Thankfully, a lot of
ours didn't either.
But that was her take on it. So she stayed home and it worked for her. But that's the anomaly. It didn't work well for a lot of people.
It seemed like for every one kid I had staying home that was a success, one or two students were just an absolute failure and ended up back in the school because they just couldn't uphold their part of the deal.
And I'm glad my wife missed out on it too, because she's a teacher and she left teaching at the end of 2019 school year to raise our littles before she's now gone back, but right on time.
Man,
that next.
I don't want to ever. I'll never do that again. If something happens and we have to go to online teaching, unless I'm teaching college age kids, I will not do that again. I was in the middle school at that time and it was awful. And that too, the expectations were hard on the kids. So I don't want to hop into COVID. We've talked a lot about that. But the 4-day work week, I think, is beneficial in most office positions. I did work in an office right out of high school, and I could tell you in that job, even during that time, I could have done most of my work from home on a computer if I had internet.
Right. It's It's different for industries, right? The remote work question is not a yes or a no question. It's a both and type of question. You have a job, and there are lots of jobs where you have to do your work at a workplace. That's the way that works. I don't. COVID, whenever that happened and we got sent home, was really easy for us because we were set up to travel anyway. In fact, the week everything started happening in March, I was not in the office anyway. I was at a client's office. And literally, like, it's kind of interesting. Like, you talk about we were home and kind of watching the news before the big shutdown happened. Because I can remember, like, sitting in the office and they canceled March Madness. It's like, whoa, you know. And then we were out at a client's office and we left around lunchtime with the team. I was taking the team to lunch. And we walked into, like, a twisted route. And we were over in, like, Carrollton. And we walked in and there's no one in the restaurant. And there's a sign that says, "This door for to-go orders." And that was the only door open. So I walked in. I was like, man, it's like almost 12. You guys, you don't open till noon? They're like, no, we're shut down. And I was like, oh. And it's so funny how I feel like because we live a little bit outside the Metroplex, we don't think about a lot of things in Dallas affecting us. But I remember seeing on the news that night before Dallas Judge Clay Jenkins shutting everything down. And I remember seeing it on the news and I was like, oh, that stinks. And then there I am, you know, in Dallas County the next day trying to go to a restaurant, not understanding or realizing why I can't go to a restaurant. So we literally drove through a Wendy's and sat in my truck and ate our Wendy's sitting in the truck. And, you know, but we were already somewhere else. And so a managing partner of the accounting firm called me and was like, hey, you guys go ahead and grab your stuff from the client, head on home, and we'll just finish there. So we were already set up to work from anywhere. All of our software was set up that way. That's just how it is. But I will tell you a very interesting metric because
hold on before you move on. I have a question for that. Is that a finance thing? Is that a accounting, banking, finance?
Not banking, because bank's retail. You know, people walk in the door still. So
okay, maybe banking is
a retail bank. Anyway.
Okay, so like
but as an accounting firm, yes, working remotely is you can't hire anyone right now if you're going to say you have to be in the office all the time. They won't come work for you because there's way too many accounting firms out there, and plus it's really hard for us to hire right now. Teaching's the same way. It's very hard to find quality candidates right now. It's one of the most sought after jobs there is, with the most openings, most opportunities. So you can't, if you're like, hey, you got to be in the office 5 days a week, nobody's going to come work for you. So you have to offer at least a hybrid model, and you have to be pretty flexible with that, or you're not just going to get.
Does that go back to the whole idea, what we talked about last week with a minimum wage? Does the 4-day work week, I want to let you finish your point.
Ours is 3-2.
3-2. Yeah. So 3 days in, 2 days off, your choice?
That's the rules, yeah.
So is that going to be a selling point for a job?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely is.
Okay. Because
that's what I mean. Like
I'm totally out of that realm, so I don't really fully grasp that. Like, I can't imagine being able to work from my home for 2 days a week, and so that's what my mother-in-law does. I mean, she works she works for a bank, but it's not retail. I'm not.
If you're back office, they probably have a lot more flexibility there. But like for us, that's the way it is. But it was interesting. I was in a leadership meeting weeks ago, and we do these employee engagement surveys, which everybody does. It's, you know, do you like working here, basically, and ask you a bunch of questions. So if you say you don't like working here, they can deduce why. And if you say you do like working here, they can deduce why. There wasn't a lot of middle of the road answers. It was people loved working where I work, or they didn't. And we struggled to find the common denominator between these two cohorts, so to speak, of employees, especially looking at like the 20-year-olds, associates and seniors up to manager who like kind of straight out of college. And my job pretty much requires you to have a master's degree. So these are kids, most of them got their master's and bachelor's in 4 years, 5 max, and they're 22, 23 entering the workforce, right? The only common denominator we could find, the ones who liked their job, were the ones who had swiped their key cards more. And the ones who didn't like working were the ones that were not in the office. It is a job that allows a lot of flexibility, That's one of the selling points, not only just work from home, but a lot of flexibility for when you work. Once you get in the upper levels and that kind of, management and executive levels, you're just tasked with getting your work done. It's not like you have to do it between these certain hours. And so that flexibility is a good thing. But at the lower levels, it's a hard job. It's really challenging and it's really difficult to do. And it is hard to do it when you're out on an island, sitting in your apartment in Uptown at your kitchen table because, you have an apartment, not even with an office, trying to learn and do this stuff when you're not around people. So we have to offer the hybrid model or nobody's going to come work for us. Same with every other accounting firm. But we really encourage people to be, and if somebody is at home, I am checking in with them often. If I have an active engagement working and I've got some associates and I know they're working from home, I check in with them 5, even 6 times a day. And that's getting on a video call and like face-to-face, and not in person, but face-to-face on a video call, checking in and talking with them and trying to keep them connected. Also, like, we are good, and people will joke about the time off aspect, but we are good about doing happy hours and hangout times to try to keep that FaceTime alive and keep people engaged. So the long story short, or kind of to tie a bow around what I think about this topic, is I am never going to be the one that says remote work is bad. And essentially that's what Elon Musk is saying right now is everyone come into the office 5 days a week. You have a job, show up. Okay, that's your take on it, buddy. But if you're working my field, no one's going to work for you, or you're going to get people who can't get jobs anywhere else. So that's going to hurt your talent pool. So I'm never going to say complete remote work is good or bad. I do think it's a both and type of question. But if you're going to work remotely, you have to keep people engaged, and you got to check in with them and make sure they're getting their stuff accomplished throughout the day.
Do people that are our age understand that?
The engagement part?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I get it.
Honestly, it's hard for me to remember the day when I had to go into the office every day.
I get that. Like, if I have a kid who's been absent quite a bit, I will email them. I mean, it's different when it's a student, but the idea and the concept is the same. Like, if I have a kid who's missed 3 or 4 days in a row, whether it's for extracurricular or they're sick or whatever, I will still email them and say, hey, are you checking in? Are you getting on Google Class and seeing what's going on with class? I can, if you're sick, like 2 weeks ago, I had a kid get in on a Google Meets and just listen to the lecture. But that was their choice. Not they asked. Like, sure, of course, during our class time, I'll log you on. The other students in the class didn't even know. Yeah. So I just mirrored my screen and put it up there, and they were there. So that was my thought. I wonder if people even fully grasp that, if managers grasp that concept.
And like I am excited about DOGE and what they're trying to do. What I don't like about it is, and maybe it's just because it's government work and it's thousands or a few million people, and you've got to make broad strokes to have any type of impact. But what if you got somebody out there who's a killer but wants to work from home because they don't want to live close to DC where it is so expensive? Say they want to live further out in Virginia, and because it's more affordable to live, or they like the area, or that's where they're from, it's not DC, it's not the big metro area, but they're just a killer at their job. Like, are they going to get swept off and they're going to go work in industry and go work for some private company and be a killer for them because they get to work from home now? Like, I want to keep our talent, and I don't know how you make change quickly with that and assess that.
I mean, it's probably the same of what you did, right? And I think Elon is one of the smartest human beings on the planet. Vivek is the same way, and they know. And I think that what they're looking for is the person who is just drawing that check. And those people stand out. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't matter what industry you're in. Those people stand out.
I hope they have a manager or supervisor, somebody's going to speak up for them and say, hey, like when the axe starts to fall, I hope somebody's going to say, hey, this person's really a great contributor. And I hope there's going to be some grace there, because I think there are some people who are killers and who can work from home. But like you say, like we were talking about my daughter earlier, it is somewhat of an anomaly. And they still need that engagement, but I don't know.
Like, I have a friend that's a teacher, and and she will be the perfect work from home person. And she's trying to get out of education and try to do the remote work, and she'll be perfect at it. Like her personality will work well with it and that stuff. For those who are listening, are watching and not listening, so this is a cigar poke.
I've seen one of those in action at the cigar shop.
So I bought it.
I was smoking this thing down to the mat, buddy.
So I started getting mad because I like this cigar is good. The flavor's good. There's a certain point when you get a little close, but the problem is the smoke, and it burns my hand. So I was like, man, there's got to be a solution for this. So this is it's a draw poker.
First time I saw one of those, I was in a cigar shop, and I was like, that is genius.
Yeah. Most people use toothpicks. That's what my uncle uses.
Yeah, it's a little simpler.
It doesn't look as cool.
It doesn't look as cool.
Look at it. It's got even a lion head on it. It's a dragon head or a panther head or something cool. I don't know. So, fancy accessory.
But, yeah, so you mentioned it. I'll just say briefly, having the Congressional Caucus for DOGE is important because it helps.
Explain the caucus concept.
A group of people in Congress who are like-minded on a certain issue and will meet together to accomplish that issue. Like, say there is a energy and oil caucus. It goes racial lines. There's a Congressional Black Caucus, and they tend to vote together on issues that affect, their constituency and them as members of Congress. So there is a DOGE caucus, and last check, now granted this was over a week ago when I was looking at this, but there's 70 members and there's 4 Democrats. So that's good because here's the thing. We know how small the margin is. 5 seats in, 4 seats in Congress, and 3 of them are going to serve in the administration. And you have the 2 Florida ones. Their special elections are set for either March or April, but Elise Stefanik, who's in New York, they haven't set a special election for her seat yet. So you're going to have a 1-seat majority that Mike Johnson's going to have to work with in Congress. And so you have one Republican who goes the other way, then it's a 216 to 216 tie, which, if people don't know, in the House, there's no tiebreakers like there is in the Senate. So if a bill ties, it dies. And so until those special elections happen and you get people in place, but even when you do, you're sitting with a 4-seat majority. So you have a few that go the other way. So it's good to have Democrats because essentially if you have all the Republicans on board for something that DOGE is on board for, and you have 4 Democrats, then now you have an 8 congressional majority. And that's a little more wiggle room. It's not a lot for them to work with for their caucus. So it's important to have a couple, some Democrats on the caucus. And a North Texan is leading the caucus, Pete Sessions, which is actually the congressman in all of the 435 congressional seats. He is in charge of government operations and personnel. So he oversees government personnel as the person in Congress, and his office oversees that. So I think that's why you're going to see a lot of the DOGE focus being personnel matters like remote work, and their first moves are going to be with payroll and personnel.
And they had another Texas person being in charge of something.
Yeah.
You see the Department of Agriculture.
Texas and Florida are basically running the Trump administration.
And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I can't make up my mind.
I like it.
I mean, I like it because I'm from Texas.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one thing I like. But did you see the new Department of Agriculture is going to be Brooke Rollins?
Yeah, I don't know who that is, but I saw you said she's a Texan.
Yeah, the thing that I found interesting about it is I actually saw this in our a Texas teacher blast email that was sent out to all the Texas teachers, and it was that she's a former FFA member.
That's really cool.
And I was thinking about this.
I am also a former FFA.
I know. I remember. I am not. Only been on a horse one time and don't ever plan on getting on another one. But what I found interesting is I look at we have, I don't remember what her role is, but she's a president of the FFA state chapter. Does that sound right? Okay. And I think about her, and she's a current senior at our high school. And I think, heck yeah, in 15 years, she would be great at doing this. And so if this person is the same as what I have seen come out of our ag department, heck yeah.
One thing the FFA is big on, you wouldn't think they're big on unless you were ever in the FFA, is they're actually really big on parliamentary procedure.
Yes.
I learned parliamentary procedure
from FFA.
in the FFA.
Yep.
It's crazy.
I did know that.
Yeah.
And the amount of procedures that fall into that is astonishing, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
I didn't have any idea until I attended a, is it meeting? Gathering? Meeting. And I had no idea the amount of procedures and policies and things that they had to do to get that done. I also saw this week that Biden is auctioning off the wall in Arizona. Did you see that?
Yeah.
Before I sent it to you, did you see
I kind of want a piece. If it's, those starting bids at $5.
$5, and the sections are like 20 feet tall.
I know. I don't know what I'd do with it, but it kind of be cool. But I don't now because I heard Texas has offered to buy all of it, and then they're going to donate it to the Trump administration for wall building. We also donated 1,400 acres to for a basically. I'll tell you what, that Don Buckingham, that's somebody that, I hate to admit, I try to stay extremely involved in politics, but there are people you see on the ballot when we vote at each election where you really don't know them. You kind of know them, hear their name every once in a while, but I've heard her name a lot, especially when it comes to border policy. She is passionate about the border from a human trafficking standpoint. There are people who are passionate for different reasons, but when she talks about it, she talks a lot about human trafficking and our daughters and protecting them. So that's her thing. But she's our land commissioner, which is an extremely powerful position in the state of Texas.
And I don't know that people understand that the land commission is very important.
She was telling a story about the Biden administration came and said there's like 3 islands in the middle of the Rio Grande, and they were saying that's federal property, and she's like, no, we got some maps over here. It says it's ours, and she's like, our maps are better than your maps, and it was just kind of neat to hear her talk.
The land commission is in charge also of in Texas. I don't know about other states, but in Texas, the land commission is in charge of like the pipeline running, and so like for example, we have a family friend that manages a ranch. A big game ranch. It's like 1,800 acres or almost 2,000 acres. It got really cool animals on it. But if, for example, when they're running those pipelines, he has a pipeline that runs through this piece of property that he has, and he speaks directly to the land commission office, and the amount of money and power that particular office has in the state of Texas is immense. Yeah. And I really didn't have any idea until the island issue came up, and then until I was talking to a family member about the amount that who he has to talk to, because I think a zebra had gotten out of their land. And so the commission was like, well, they had to get a hold of the land commissioner's office, and was like, hey, this tagged zebra got out, and because your guys left it open. And so there was a little bit of blame and go back, but the guy had cameras and they didn't lock the gate properly, and one of the zebras got out. So, which is actually very terrifying, not because of the zebras, but because what if the land commission goes into your place and you have like a registered tiger on your land?
Don't leave that gate open.
Don't leave that gate open.
I've seen Tiger King. I know what happens.
Tiger King was not on my bingo card for tonight, but I mean,
we should bring Tiger King back up. I mean, it's an election after all.
Hey, did you see he asked for a pardon?
Yes.
What if he gets?
He asked for one in 2016 too.
What if in Biden's? What if he pardons Tiger
2016. King? When he went to, it was when his show came out during COVID.
So it was like 1920. Trump was president.
Trump was still president, and he asked for a pardon then and didn't get it.
What if he gets it?
I don't know. I hope they make a show because that was great.
That was a fantastic show. That was a great COVID show.
It was a good COVID show.
Great COVID show. And I don't think you could have had that show in any other time.
I don't think it would have got our attention.
Definitely
Maybe.
Not. Definitely
I don't
not.
know.
I also found out something interesting this week about GM going away from EVs.
Yeah.
The robo-taxis. And I saw that also now the Postal Service is going away from EVs. I think that's going to be piggybacking off of what we were just talking about in DOGE. I just can't help but wonder if that's going to be one of the things that I know Elon is Tesla.
Yeah.
And I adamantly disagree with him that in 10 years, most people will be driving an EV. I just don't think it's possible. And he also says that it'll be like driving a vehicle, a gas-powered combustion engine will be like riding a horse in 50 years. I just don't see it. I mean, we also thought that wind and solar was the future, and it's very obviously not.
Mm-hmm.
And so what that looks like for a company like GM, I mean, it's catastrophic for them.
I know there are other ones out there, but I just feel like Elon is a genius, and he's found a way to make it work. He's made a cool car that's fast, that has a lot of features that people like. And I know personally a handful of people. I don't know a lot of people who drive Teslas to begin with, but I know a handful of people who drive Teslas because it's a cool car and it's got a lot of features. They like the self-driving aspect of it, which other cars have as well, even internal combustion engine vehicles. But it's a kind of a cool car. So I think there's a lot of people who drive them for that reason. I think they will. I don't think you're going to see, even in our lifetime, those cars take over to where they become the majority. I think they'll continue to grow in influence, but I think Elon Musk has been the only one to really figure out how to do it. I just wish he understood what a truck was supposed to look like.
Ugh.
That's such an
Don't
ugly.
get me started.
My kids are mesmerized with those things.
But maybe that's who his audience is. Maybe he's a big picture guy.
So much smarter than me, so I'm not even going to diss him on the Cybertruck. He's just so far ahead of his time and so smart that it hasn't caught up with us yet.
And I just don't.
But my 5-year-olds love those things.
Oh, my son thinks it's the coolest thing ever. Like if we happen to, there's quite a few of them in our region or in our area, and if we pull up to next to one on 30 or 635, my son's just like, Dad, that is the coolest car ever. And I'm like, it looks like a box.
It's just ugly. Some of them that get wrapped look pretty cool, but still, no thanks.
So I've lit a Rojas breakfast taco. It's my favorite. Cup of coffee. I wish I had a cup of coffee. It'd be nice. So other things going on, the drones.
Other electric things.
I really didn't want to talk about this, if I'm being honest with you. But we couldn't, we kind of esteem ourselves as present ourselves as a current events.
Somewhat current events, right?
And I just don't think that it's that big of a deal.
I'm with you on that. I believe that I don't know. I think that the government does know what's going on. They don't have to tell us everything, but I do think they should say something. Like, I know they don't have to, like, Trump doesn't have to tell the reporter today that he's going to have preemptive strikes against Iran. Like that's definitely a dumb question, but there's enough people that seem concerned about it, especially in that New Jersey area, that you need to say something like, hey, but it's difficult to say like, hey, we know what these are and you don't need to worry about it. It's
and like, how do you
knocking on the door and say, hey, I'm the government, I'm here to help, right? Like, Like we're going to trust the government knows what they're doing. So the government's telling us not to worry about it. That probably means I need to worry about it. Right. So,
well, and my wife asked me, she was like, what do you think about the drones? I'm like, she's like, well, do you think that's a big deal? I'm like, probably not. I don't know. Mm-hmm. And I can't decide if it's a good thing or a bad thing that Trump really hasn't addressed it. I mean, the two big speculations on social media was one, the Iranian mothership. That is the most ridiculous thing. And like, it wasn't just like, if I see some nut job on a reel that's ranting and raving about an Iranian mothership, I'm like, okay, you're the fringe guy. But then like when it starts to pick up some traction, like, you really don't believe that, do you? No. Like, I'm not talking about you. I'm just talking about in general. Like,
right.
I can't, like, there's no way I can buy into the concept this is a mothership from Iran.
Even if it is the Iranian mothership, they know that, because here's the thing, and I'll say this with all the credibility of an actual licensed drone pilot.
Ooh.
So, yes, have my FFA card in my wallet right now. And a avid drone enthusiast, that those things got to land. Like, just, you know where they're going.
Yeah.
Like, follow it. If you really want to know. Again, if you're the government with that kind of resources, they know where they're coming from and they know where they're going. And they've chosen not to tell us anything about it, which, take what you will about what that means. Are there a bunch of them? Like, honestly, part of the little Eddie Haskell in me, to make an old Leave It to Beaver reference that no one, probably even our age is going to understand. Dennis the Menace, like, mentality. Part of me wants to go put mine up in the air at night and just, like, cause some chaos. Like, it's a drone. Now they're over our town.
Except for now they're going to shoot it down.
Probably so.
And that's the other thing about,
and that's illegal. So I would say I would never do that.
Where
flying a drone for that purpose to cause distress is actually illegal. And
we're going to have to put a precursor. What is it called? Like
I'm joking.
Yeah.
Allegedly.
But I think too, like, I would say we both live in a neighborhood, and I mean, how often do you see a drone fly over your neighborhood?
I'm out here every once in a while.
I mean, I would say in the summertime, it's nightly.
Yeah.
And right now, it's the weather's kind of crap. But in the summertime, I would say nightly there's a drone flying over our neighborhood. Now, not the massive ones that they're allegedly seeing in New Jersey,
but a lot of the ones that they're showing pictures of are not the massive ones. Like I've seen some zoomed in pictures. I'm like, that's a DJI, probably a Mavic or an Air 3. Like you just see the spacing of the lights on it.
Yeah,
like. That's just some
well,
dude
and then
drone.
some of them too, of like some of the images, like this is a Predator drone. I'm like, have you ever been up close to a Predator drone?
Yeah,
like those things are bigger than this garage.
They're pretty large.
They're massive, and you would know that.
And they have huge props on the back of them, make a lot of noise. Like,
and they're not quiet, and they're
more quiet than a jet engine, but some of them are jet powered. But anyway, it's.
Do we want to dive into the second theory that I put on there?
Go ahead.
So it was supposedly a nuclear sniffer, is what they referred it to as, and apparently some guy from an NGO came out and said that we do have those types of drones.
Yeah,
he was like, I know because we manufactured them.
Yeah,
and so that's a bit concerning. So I also want to preface this by saying I don't think that there's a nuclear bomb there. But it's kind of cool that we have those. Didn't know that.
I like that idea. You can do lots of things with drones. People think about obviously just cameras, but drones are used in commercial purposes for all kinds of things, mapping things. They have radar on them, where they can just map topography, things like that. I know somebody uses it just for that in his business. Like that's a thing. So I don't know. Is there?
Well, they use them in hurricanes too.
Yeah.
They send them out. They drop them from the airplanes.
To send back data and then never return again.
Well, and they're disposable, and like even if you go back
in the movie Twister,
I was about to say, if you go back to the 90s, that was the early drone technology that they were using.
Yeah, just free flight, going up there and gathering data. So I don't care too much about it. I don't believe for one second that the government doesn't know. I know that's still a great line, and there's a lot of people are going to be like, Biden doesn't know anything. I'm like, no, there's somebody in the Department of Defense.
Somebody knows what that
knows exactly where it is, where it's coming from, and where it's going. And you can decide for yourself if you want to think that's concerning or not, that the government knows and they're not telling us.
Yeah,
I'm really okay with the government not telling us a lot of things.
Same.
Because I'm fine with having that knowledge, but I know there's a lot of people who aren't. And don't need that kind of knowledge.
And I also can't help but wonder, like, if something like that was happening where we live, that drone would be shot down in a matter of about 2.7 seconds.
Well, it depends. I mean, how high they're flying. You got a shotgun shot. Are you really good at it? And like, are you going to be? There's definitely people around here dumb enough to shoot rifles off into the air. But, I think you're right.
I'm not too terribly concerned about it. I'm not worried.
It's a thing that's going on, but it is pretty far down the list of things I'm worried about.
100%. And then you're like, what are they distracting us from?
That's always a good line.
Is this the Democrats trying to force martial law because of the drones? I'm like, guys.
I'll tell you this. So Dana Perino is one of my favorite people, former Georgia U.S. press secretary. He only had two. He had Ari Fleischer at first, then Dana Perino. And so Dana Perino is a host on The Five, which is a Fox News show that comes on at 5 o'clock Eastern. And it's five people, always one Democrat, and they just talk about issues. And she went to a drone manufacturer in Tennessee and was like, what do you think about the drones? And he was like, it's just airplanes. People are seeing airplanes. They think they're seeing drones. And he was just so dismissive about it, which makes me think either he might have a point, or he knows something and he's also being very deflective.
Yeah. Well... if you've ever been, have you ever been to New York City and Jersey? Like, there's planes everywhere.
Everywhere, all the time.
And it's not just, like, there's helicopter and helipads. And, I'm not worried about it. I mean, I want to be worried about it, but I don't at the same time, if that makes sense. I'm aware of it. I guess that's the best word.
That's a good way to put it.
Do we want to hop into Greg Abbott, or do we have enough time for it?
Yeah.
So Greg Abbott tweeted this week that
yes,
that teachers in the state of Texas are going to be making six figures income.
Yeah, he mentioned. We'll find the tweet. Let me find the tweet because he mentioned a number that seemed really small for me, considering all the teachers there are in the state of Texas.
And so
do you know how many teachers are in your district? And you're not a big district.
There's 70 on my campus.
I mean, like total district. Hold on.
I
think ours has to be close to 1,000. I would guess.
I would say, if I had to guess, around 300. Maybe. Hold on.
I think between our two districts, that might be the total number of teachers.
Yeah, I would
in
say
all
around
of Texas making
between
350
and 400. Between 350 and 400 teachers is what I would say, because there's 70 teachers per campus ish, and your district or your school district that you live in is double our size, so that would make sense. About 1,000, maybe a little more, maybe a little less. But the premise of the tweet, and he's pulling it up, it was basically that through an incentive called the Teacher Incentive Allotment, the TIA, that teachers will be able to make upwards of six figures, $100,000 plus. And so when we think about that amount of money, go ahead, read. 1,400 teachers.
Yeah, so the TIA puts our teachers on a pathway to a six-figure salary. We provided $575 million in additional teacher pay, and the 22 to 23 school year, so not the one we're in right now, but last year's, because like you were saying before, is always last year's data. Over 1,400 outstanding teachers earned more than $100,000. Like, that's a small number of teachers when you consider. I'm going to Google how many teachers in the state of Texas right now.
So let me kind of explain. So there's 3 levels to this TI. Well, 4 levels. There's no recognition. There's level 1, level 2, level 3. Recommended is level 2. Mastery is level 3. I can't remember. Minimum, recommended, mastery. So I'll put my personal business out there because, that's what we do. I was able to achieve the second level. Okay, so if you're looking at the tiers, that's technically level 3 if you're talking 0, 1, 2, and 3. I'll talk in that format so people who aren't aware of how teaching works, that gives them a number. So I would be considered a tier 3, right? 0, 1, 2, and 3, and 4 is the top. So you can earn in tier 3 based on demographics, based on socioeconomics of your district, based on need, and then there's 4 qualifiers, and then I can't remember the 4th one off the top of my head. I wrote it down, but my Chromebook is almost dead. You can earn a bonus, essentially. This is based off of 2 factors. The T-test, which is how you are assessed as a teacher, and there's 4... This is so complicated. There's 4 tiers in that, 4 domains, okay? And only 2 of those qualify you for the TIA. Then student growth, okay? Your student growth, you give them an assessment at the beginning of the year. Then you give them an assessment at the middle of the year. Percentage growth, if you reach 70% growth, that's when you receive it, okay? Each district has a little bit different qualifiers based on what area you live in. And the amount of money that you can receive is a little bit less. So in my district of 350-ish, okay, at my campus of 70, I think there were 10 teachers that received a distinction in that previous year. We've added more. I think in the last number, I'm going to butcher this, but it was in the 20% of all teachers on our district received it. So also, with that being said, he said 1,400 teachers received it. Not every district in the state of Texas is qualified yet to receive TIA. It's a 5-year process to even start it. And then it's a year behind after that. So to come out and say, first off, 6 figures, that sounds like a lot of money. It sounds like a lot of money. Congratulations to those teachers that are receiving that. I don't know a single teacher I don't know a single teacher that makes six figures.
Well, to interject my numbers into your talk here, there's 385,000 teachers in the state of Texas. So the percentage of teachers that qualified for this, that he's touting on his Twitter, whatever, is a third of 1%. So take 1% of all teachers in the state. Like, it's not even the top 1%. It's, you take that top 1% of all the teachers in the state, divide that in thirds, and it's that third that actually got this. And I'll just say, like, the problem with this, and I'll let you finish and continue on the topic, but the problem that I see with it right off the bat is that it is at the state level. Like, even, and in my workplace at an accounting firm, I work for a global company. Okay, we're in 40 different countries, but the people who decide how much money I'm going to make next year as compared to what I made this year are the people I walk in and see in the office every single day. Now, there are some, if I'm a killer and I'm just great at it, then they're going to rate me really high. And if they rate me really high and that equates to a certain amount of like raise, bonus, promotion, whatever, at my level, it does have to go to like a governing board that's a bigger group of people and on a wider representation of our country. But at the same time, the people who are the voice in the room are the people I walk in and work with every day. And so there are teachers on your campus, there are teachers on my wife's campus who did not get this, who absolutely deserve it, and who could legitimately, their fellow teachers, their administrators who see them working, who see them pouring into the lives of students every single day, week in, week out, know that they deserve to be recognized for this, but they won't be because the state has had to reduce it to just those metrics. And I can't tell you how many times we're talking in my workplace about, you know, a manager or something that we're wanting to promote or rate high, that, okay, here's their metrics, and yes, they're pretty good, but here's all the intangible things that make this person somebody we want to keep around and we want to reward. And you don't have that. It's just cold numbers that don't represent anything. Like, you know, the problem I have, and I'm going to continue my rant for a little while longer and let you go on. My wife teaches U.S. history. It is a tested subject. So she has that state test that her kids take every year. But anytime there's an assembly, guess what class they pull them out of? They ain't going to pull them out of math or English. They're going to pull them out of history. So when they have an assembly at their school, they're pulling them out of history class. So she misses that instructional time. I don't care if it's 2 weeks before her test. If they have somebody come in and talk about don't do drugs in an assembly, it's out of the history class where they come to do that. And it is so frustrating. And I don't even work there. I'm just listening to her talk.
Here's even more frustrating. So we said it was a third of 1% of teachers received six figures. Mm-hmm. So mind you, we'll hop in because this is all public data, right?
And let's just talk about what six figures really means this day and age. Like, it's not what it was whenever we were.
It's not enough
when we were in school.
But that's a different topic for a different day, right? So, like, if we're talking about, there were 481 schools in the state of Texas that participated in the TIA. Only 306 districts, I know we're doing a lot of numbers, 306 districts were fully approved. Because you can go through the 5-year process and then they send it off to the state and Texas Tech, which is the university that approves you, and they can deny it. Mm-hmm. Okay? Would you like to guess? I just want you to guess how many school districts there are in the state of Texas.
1,000.
1,207.
Okay.
So that means that only 306 were fully approved. What is that percentage?
25%.
25% of the districts were actually approved to be TIE. So
you're saying 75% of the districts in the state, there's nobody on that campus that should be earning six figures.
That is fully approved.
I know, but like the program, the you know, street level rubber meets the road effect of that is 75% of the school districts in Texas. This program says you don't have anybody there who's worth making $100,000.
No.
That's what I think.
That's what you think. No, that means that they are still in the process of applying or have not applied to be a part of the program.
Or some of those applied and got rejected.
Yes.
Because of something an administrator probably did when they have good teachers.
And it wasn't even it was an accident. Like, it was just a fumble in a number, or someone who is trying to do the best they can but is understaffed, which is what we talked about last week, and somebody's throwing this on the plate. Hey, we need to try to get this done, and this person didn't go to school for this type of business, this type of economical business and education, and now they're being tasked with this position.
Right.
And it's a lose-lose. Like, I'm not it's a difficult topic. But here's kind of where I'm going with all this. Okay, the average starting teacher makes $50,000. Okay, this was not designed for the first year teacher. It's difficult to get, and if you I don't want to say I got lucky. I'm good at my job. Teacher of the month, by the way. But they shout out the podcast at the school board meeting.
What?
I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Yeah. But
welcome new listeners.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. I just worry that they're promoting this to people who aren't going to be able to attain it in the first year, the second year, the third year, the fourth year. And then they're like, heck, I don't see any way I'm ever going to be able to attain this. And then they're going to get out.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the many issues that I have with it. Am I all about giving me, Kyle Smith, Coach Smith, more money? Absolutely. Yeah. I need all the money I can get. But I also want my coworker to get that money too. I also want my daughter, who's potentially trying to become a teacher, to be able to get those funds. Right. And if you're telling me now, I didn't even know that there were that many districts that weren't getting it. So you're telling me that only 25% of the schools in the state of Texas, school districts in the state of Texas, are qualified for it, then that's a misleading tweet.
It is. Big picture, in Texas, I love our state, and I love that we have fiscally conservative politics. The big picture problem with this is that it is a big government solution to a problem, and those never work. And they're trying to address this at the state big government level instead of doing it locally. Like, send it back to the districts. Now, those districts then need to come with their slate of people, and they might have to fight at the state level that way.
And that's kind of how it works. Like, you have to, the domains that you have to be approved through, not the growth. That's a whole different circle. But that is proven through walkthroughs and T-test evaluations and all these different things that the corporate world has. And you kind of understand what I'm talking about because you've been in the education business before, or been around it at least for long enough to understand that. But then I'm asking my kids to take a test. So I teach world history, okay? And it's from prehistory, so you're talking about Mesopotamia, all the way to 9/11. So underneath what the Texas educational, the TEKS is what, Texas Education Knowledge System or whatever, tells us there are 30,000 topics that can be covered. And there are only 35 to 40 questions that are asked. So, and I'm not given... So they're saying, okay, Coach Smith, here's 30,000 topics that we're going to cover, and we're only going to ask about 30 of them. How am I supposed to know? Like if in the business world, right? If they said, okay, you can get this bonus, you have to do A, B, C, and D. Yeah. But there's also 30,000 other things that we could maybe quiz you over. Right. And that just it's not fair. And I realize life is not fair, but it's the same with the tested subjects. The state gives you this very broad topic, and then they throw little gimmies in there. They throw a person in there that is not directly in the TEKS. They did that because I used to teach 8th grade too, and it used to make me so mad. I would get so mad because obviously you don't get to see the test until the summertime. Yep. And I would get the test back, and I'd be like, this is not a person that we've ever talked about. Yeah. And they just throw it in there as as an example, the question would be about presidential candidates, right? And it's talking about the first 5 presidents: Washington, Adams, Jefferson, Madison, Monroe. Okay. And then they throw in in connection to William McKinley. Yeah. Well, William McKinley isn't even in the 8th grade TEKS, but they're trying to connect it back. So then the kids are they're totally lost. They're 8th graders. Yeah. But that's one question of 30 that now they're totally thrown off on. Yeah. And they do that every year. Yeah. And it's it's so frustrating because I'm being held to a standard of this kid who I'm trying to get to pass an exam so I can get an extra $30,000. And that's another thing, when we talked about admin, a lot of times there's a disconnect. If you don't get this correct, you are costing me $30,000. Right? And it's hard. It's very hard. And it's something that is a good thing because they are giving out more money for those who are good teachers and those who will fight for it and those who will cross the T's and dot the I's. And when I came from the business world, that's what you had to do. But we have a lot of people in education who did not come from the business world. They're in the business of education, or they just wanted to be a teacher because that's what they always wanted to be. They never wanted to play the political banter game. And so I think that this leads us into the topic that's a little more local or regional, is Louisville ISD closing 4 of their 3 to 5 elementary schools because of a $4 million shortfall. So if you get on social media, there's a lot of people blaming that it's so top heavy in Louisville. Well, everything that a school district does is public knowledge. You can get on and you can find their financial reports. Right. You can find their ratings financially. Mm-hmm. I believe Louisville is an A+ rated financial district. They're A or B in their academic growth. So they're way up there in terms of like how they manage themselves. Mm-hmm. The problem is there's a lot that goes into Louisville, right? But we have the same issue in our area. When you have an old school, like an older building, it takes millions to repair that.
Yeah.
It takes millions to bring it up to code. So any changes that you make, if you're having growth or you've lost students and you need to try to figure out a way to downgrade that or, consolidate that, the easiest way is to close that old building down, condemn it, and tear it down.
Yeah.
And then sell the property. Mm-hmm. But when we look at it from a surface level where you're really hurting those kids, mm-hmm. you are. And that, I don't think that Louisville ISD took that lightly. I don't think any school district, and if I'm telling you, I'm very passionate about this, and I wish I could have the voice, a big enough voice. That's a goal of mine for this podcast, is to get it to where people in Austin listen to what, not just me, but other people who are like, man, I don't give a crap what happens in Austin. I don't. I care about what happens in my local school district.
Right.
That's what I care about. And the districts around us, because if the ones around us succeed, then we succeed. Mm-hmm. But if you continue down the path that we're going down, where you're not putting money back in the local districts, your downfall of Texas education is going to be detrimental, and I don't know that we will be able to recover. Mm-hmm. And I don't think people understand that. They look at their taxes, and they see my property values go up. Well, that means it's going to the school. No, actually, Louisville, the last 5 years, have lowered their tax threshold because of property values going up. They were trying to manage that to where they didn't. They went from, I think in 2019, they're at a 1.3. So $1.30.
That's low.
And then they were down to 1.03.
Oh, wow.
So they had dropped it 27 cents.
Yeah, a 1% school tax is low.
And that's most of the districts in our area.
Yeah.
So it's not that the district
is
taxing.
It's capped at 1.54
here.
I think in Texas, I think it's capped.
So, but my point in saying that is that's not a lot of money. Mm-hmm. And so I did the math too. We were talking about this. The classroom I receive, based on my salary, the amount of money the district receives is about $500 a student. I have 120 students. My salary is right around $60,000. That's public knowledge. You can look it up. That's $500 a student. Mm-hmm. That's not a lot of money for a year. Mm-hmm. So think about daycare cost. If you want to say teachers are daycare costs, okay, then you need to pay $115 a day.
Yeah.
Because that's what it costs to run a daycare now. Yeah. And that's cheap. If you can get it for $115, that's cheap. Mm-hmm. So it's one of those things where it's I'm very passionate about it. I have a solution in mind, but it requires them to bump that per student capita up. Mm-hmm. And if they don't do that, if they don't do something in March, you will see what happened in Louisville in droves. Mm-hmm. It may not be in our area because we're growing, specifically in the city we live in, they're okay. Specifically the district that I work in, we're okay. We have good management at the very top as far as financials go. The district that you live in and that I live in is fine, right? There's been some tax things that have come into our area that are corporate, and they're really driving that up. And there's some moves that the district can make to financially stabilize itself. Same with my district. But what I worry about is the one that's right down the road that just didn't pass the bond. Mm-hmm. the one that's a little bit across the lake, those are the ones that I worry about, the more established ones, because they have bills that have been there for 20, 30, 40 years that they have to pay.
Yep.
And in order for those to continue to be that way, if they don't raise the student allotment at all, you might see you might see a school like Mesquite close 30 schools.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Maybe 30 is a lot, but 10. But 10, you'll see more like Louisville, where you're closing these old schools down for a more modern school. Because think about just the electricity of an old school in the summertime. If they don't have good windows, I mean, just think about the amount of AC that building uses.
Yeah, at some point it becomes that decision to close a school and go with a new one becomes a much easier factor. God, I'm sorry. I was really going to make that point, but this punter just got trucked.
Well, and I think TIA is a good thing at its core, right? At its core, it's a good thing.
Good idea. I go back to it's a big government solution to what should be a local district.
And you
fight
if they raise the basic allotment to what they were saying the voucher or the ESAs were going to be. I should have looked it up. It's like $5,600 a student, I think, right now. The base level of the ESAs last time in the last legislation in the state of Texas was $7,500. So if they do that, if they just bump it to $7,500 a student, that's huge.
Yeah.
That's huge. And that I love public schools. Okay, but here's another caveat for someone like me who is recognized or in that tier 2 or tier 3. If they go to a voucher system and you start to see the public school system start to collapse, that recognition on my certificate is going to make me very marketable. And that scares me, but also is like, okay, I'm going to be like me. I'm going to be fine. I'll be able to find a job. There's thousands of teachers there's thousands of districts hiring.
Yeah.
I'm going to be fine. But at the same time, it's like, well, what about my friend across the hall? Or what about my friend in another district that doesn't have that distinguishment yet, who hasn't even been able to do it? They just graduated. That's the fear that I have, because those are going to be the ones that are in trouble. And those are the ones that they're still learning how to be a good teacher. I've been doing this for 15 years, so I'm pretty good at my job. And it's not hard for me, but being a teacher is very hard.
Right.
And that's what I worry about. And it's a ongoing conversation that you and I will continue to have on this podcast. Because when the legislation starts to happen, if they don't do something, man, it's going to be bad. And I'm interested to hear what and how Abbott responds if he doesn't get the voucher system passed this time.
I think he will.
I think he will too. But I'm holding out hope, because I don't think that's the direction we need to go. But I fear that's the direction we are going.